Hello students, in this video I am going to explain about the liquid states. Under liquid state, in this video, now we are going to discuss about the types of the intermolecular forces and the surface tension and the differences between the liquid and liquid, solid and the gas states. Okay, so first of all, we go for the discussion about the intermolecular forces. You know very well that in the gaseous state, molecules are away from each other, and the intermolecular forces in the gaseous state are negligible. So, in the gases, intermolecular forces begin to operate under high pressure and low temperature conditions only. So, here now we go for what are the different types of the intermolecular. Intermolecular means the attractions are the attractions that exist between the atoms of the different molecules are known as the intermolecular forces. If the attractions are present among the atoms of the same atom, then we call call those forces as the intramolecular attraction forces. Intra, but here intermolecular forces. So here intermolecular forces are of four types. First one of them is the dipole attractions. Second one of them is the ion dipole interactions. Third one of them is the ion induced dipole interactions. Fourth one of them is the Landon attractions. Yeah, these forces have also different names. We go for them one by one. First of all, we go for the dipole and dipole interactions. These interactions are also called as the Keesom forces. Keesom forces. Here, we know very well that the heteroatomic molecules, that means that molecules made up of the different atoms, when they are made up of the different atoms, certainly they will show some polarity in them because different elements have the different electronegativity. And among those, the element which is more electronegative generally gets the partial negative charge, and the element which is less electronegative compared to the other one gets the partial positive charge. So, the heteroatomic molecules generally exist as the polar molecules. We call them as the dipoles also. Okay, na? Because we see the positive charge at one end and negative charge at the other end. And as the charge separation is there in the dipoles or in the polar molecules, certainly attractions exist among the oppositely charged poles. For example, look here in this HCl liquid, here chlorine is having partially negative charge and hydrogen is having partially positive charge. So attraction exists among the chlorine of one HCl molecule and hydrogen of the other molecule. So such attractions are here are called as the dipole-dipole interactions. And these dipole-dipole interactions are very strong in the easily liquefiable gases. That means if these interactions are very strong, we can easily liquefy them. So this is about the dipole-dipole interactions. Next we go for the dipole and induced dipole interactions. These are also known as the Debye forces. So sometimes what happens means in the presence of some dipoles, the non-polar molecules also begin to behave as the dipoles. For example, here uh, for the non-polar molecule, we can take the homoatomic molecules like hydrogen, oxygen, nitrogen as the non-polar molecules. So as these molecules are made up of the similar atoms, we don't find any charge separation in them. That means there will be no polarity or polarization in them. But when they come in contact with the molecules which are dipoles, uh, then what happens means they lose their symmetry. As a result, they also behave as the dipoles. So the newly born dipoles here are called as the induced dipoles. Induced dipoles. And now here the attractions now begin to operate between the permanent dipoles and newly formed dipoles. That means induced dipoles. So that's why such attractions are called as here dipole and induced dipole interactions. So due to these attractions only, gases are able to dissolve in the water. Water is a permanent dipole. Water molecules are permanent dipoles. And when these gases, nitrogen, hydrogen or oxygen gases, come in contact with the water molecules, even though these molecules are non-polar, then in the presence of these water molecules they lose their symmetry and change into the dipoles. That means they become induced dipoles. As a result, they dissolve in the water in small proportions. If these attractions, nearby forces are not present, then those nitrogen, hydrogen, and oxygen gas are not going to dissolve in the water. Okay. Next, we go for the ion and dipole interactions. These are also known as the Kisam forces. Now, when we dissolve the ionic compounds like sodium chloride, potassium bromide, then what happens means, for example, assume that we have dissolved the sodium chloride. Then what happens? The sodium ions are surrounded by the water molecules from the negative side. For example, in water we have the H2O molecules. No? So in water, hydrogen gets the partial positive charge and oxygen gets the partial negative charge. Okay. So now these Na plus ions of the salt are attacked by the water molecules from the side of the oxygen atom. So as a result, this Na plus ion will be surrounded by the many water molecules, and these Na plus ions are dragged into the water. In the similar way, Cl minus ions are attacked by the water molecules from the H plus ion sides. We know very well that Cl minus is the negative charge, no? And these Cl minus ions are attacked by the water molecules from the H plus ions side, and they are taken into the water. So such type of attractions that exist between the ions and the permanent dipoles are known as the ion dipole interactions. So due to these interactions only, salts dissolve in large amounts in water. Salts dissolve in large amounts in water. So these are ion dipole interactions. And fourth one is the London forces. These forces are also called as the van der Waal forces, as they are discovered by the van der Waal. Okay, London forces or the van der Waal forces. These are also known as the instantaneous forces. That means actually these are not permanent attractions. They are formed depending on the situation. So that's why they are known as the instantaneous forces. Otherwise, they are called as the dispersion forces or temporary forces. So, five different names are there. So, London forces is van der Waals forces, and dispersion forces. All these are same. So generally, we observe these London forces in the homoatomic molecules or in the noble gases. So now we know very well that we can liquefy the noble gases also. No, actually, noble gases are completely filled with the in the noble gases. All the shells are filled with the electrons. No, so and the electron cloud surrounds the nucleus in a symmetrical manner as shown here. Okay, like this. In the electronic cloud surrounds the nucleus in the symmetrical manner. But due to the conditions, that means at the high temperature and at low temperatures and at high pressures, suddenly these molecules, these atoms may be, the nucleus of the atoms may be pressed to one side. As a result, these atoms or molecules lose their symmetry. As a result, nucleus goes to one side and electronic cloud moves to the other side. As a result, what happens? Those atoms become as a dipoles. In such dipoles are now called as the instantaneous dipoles. That means suddenly, at once, they change into the dipoles. No? So that's why they are known as the instantaneous dipoles. Now these instantaneous dipoles attract one another. As a result, they can be changed into the liquids. Now we know uh, now we go for the differences between solid, liquid, and gases physical states. We know very well that solids are rigid in comparison to the liquids and gases. That means solids have the rigid structure. So their structure does not change easily. Liquids and that means solids have specific space, a shape. Liquids don't have any rigid or specific shape. So they take the shape of the vessels in which they are kept. Gases actually don't have any particular shape. Okay, na? And here solids have the different volume also, whereas the liquids have also have the different volume, but they don't have any definite shape. Gases do not have definite shape or definite volume. Okay. Next we go for the third point. Solid particles have low kinetic energy. So there is no free movement for the particles of the solids. Just they vibrate about their mean positions. So in solids, molecules or particles have only vibrational movements, whereas in liquids, molecules are free to move. So that's why they have some intermediate kinetic energy along with the vibrational energy. In gases, long distances are there between the molecules, so that's why here the molecules also have the translatory motion along with the rotator and vibrator motions. They have the translatory motions also, and gaseous molecules have very high kinetic energy. And we go for the fourth point here. Solids cannot be compressed easily and appreciably. Even with the application of the high pressures, we can't compress these solids. And high pressures have very little effect on the liquids. When we use the high pressures, liquids can be compressed to small amounts. And gases have large effect on them. Pressures have large effect on the gases. When pressures are applied, high pressures are applied, we observe a great change in the volume of the gases. Now we go for the next point, that solid molecules are held tightly by strong nuclear forces. So, in a solid state, molecules are held strongly with one another by the nuclear forces. Here, in a liquid state, molecules are also held tightly, but not so strong as in the solid. Some intermediate level attractions are there. And in the gases, the attractions are very weak. That's why they are far away from each other. And in solids, are present in the very dense form, and density of the liquid is in the intermediate level, and the gases have very low density. Solids cannot flow easily. Solids cannot flow easily, and liquids flow easily. Gases flow very easily, and they evaporate easily. Solids diffuse very slowly. Liquid diffuse somewhat moderate speed with moderate speed, and gases diffuse at a very high speed. Now, uh, here we go for another concept, that is the radial probability. Here, radial probability tells about the distribution of the molecules in the gaseous, liquid, and solid states of the matter. So, here in this graph, for solids, we get the straight lines like this. Straight lines like this. Here, actual radial probability means, look here, radial probability means the number of the molecules that are present in the surroundings of a specified molecule. That means which we are observing. For example, assume that we are observing this red ball, and the blue ball is from at the r distance from the red ball, and we are now we want to calculate the number of the molecules that are present in between the r and plus or d distance. Okay, that means the number of the molecules that are present in the dr area, now we call as the radial probability. Okay, so here we define the radial probability as the number of the molecules that are present in the dr area, from a specified molecule, as the radial probability. Now here for solids we have the straight lines. That means here in molecules all the solids are packed closely to each other. That means long distance are not there. As a result, within the limited area we can find large number of the molecules. So find a particular order in the solids, and in the gases, here we get a parabola. That means within the given specific distance, the number of the molecules is very less. The number of the molecules that are present in the specified area is very less. So that's why we can say that there is no particular order in the arrangement of these molecules, because long distances are there. And in the liquids we observe some maxima and some minima. Here some maxima and some minima. Look at maxima and minima. Okay, that means it's a in liquids we find some order in the arrangement of the molecules, like in the solids somewhere, and somewhere we don't observe any particular order in the molecules, like in the gases. That means here the attractions are the order of the arrangement of the molecules in the liquids is somewhat intermediate to that of the gases and that of the solids. So somewhere we find some short range orders in the liquids. So that is the point here we have to understand by considering the radial probability graphs. We get the radial probability graphs uh, from the X-ray point of the view. So X-ray diffraction experiments, we will get the radial probability curves. Radial probability curves. So again, here this is also a radial probability curve. Okay. Here the what points we would observe in the radial probability curves. Here we go once. The distribution in the crystal solid is shown by the vertical lines. It represents an ordered state. It also shows that the number of the atoms or molecules at a distance or from any individual atoms is fixed. Okay, that means from a fixed atom, the number of the molecules that are present around an atom at the r distance, here we call as the probability factor, radial probability. Next, second point, the distribution curve of gas gives parabolic curve which tells the complete random state of the molecule. Okay, complete randomness is there in the gas molecules. Now, a distribution curve of liquid shows maximum and minimum. Maxima and minima. It tells us an intermediate state. This shows that liquids are not completely devoid of regularity of the ordered structure. The maxima and minima indicate some regular order in the liquid structure. The regular order is of small range as the number of the maxima and minima is small. And you have to remember that as the temperature increases, the maximum minima, the difference between the maxima and minima decrease and it slowly changes into the parabolic curve. That means the liquids at high temperature change into the gas. Now we go for the another concept, that is the surface energy or the surface tension. Here surface, first of all we observe the example for the surface energy, then after we go for the definitions. So look here, we observe the water liquid droplets in the spherical shape. Now look here, the surface tension of water provides the necessary wall tension for the formation of bubbles with water. The tendency to minimize, look here. So here when we sprinkle water on pans are used to make the dosha, no? on hard dosha pan, when we sprinkle water, then water gets the spherical shape like this. So here what happens means water molecules, that means liquid molecules, have a tendency to minimize their volume. Okay, so this can be explained by considering the surface energy or surface tension. Okay na? So here one point we would remember that the liquid molecules or the liquids have a property to minimize their volume. As a result, here liquids tend to have a spherical shape because spheres have the less volume compared to the other geometrical structures, other shapes. Now look here, surface tension is responsible for the shape of the liquid droplets. Although easily formed, droplets of water tend to be pulled into spherical shape by the cohesive forces of the surface layer. Okay. Now walking on the water. Look, we know very well that small insects such as the water strider can walk on the water because their weight is not enough to penetrate the surface. Okay, so here we can see that scene, that picture. Here this insect is walking on the water. Now floating a needle, we can float a needle or a paper clip on the water surface as shown in this picture. Look here. Here in this picture, a needle is floating on the surface of the water. Here a paper clip is floating on the water. This is due to the surface tension or surface energy phenomenon. Now look here. A carefully placed small needle can be made to float on the surface of the water, even though it is several times as dense as water. If the surface is agitated to break up the surface tension, when the needle will quickly sink. So in order to make the needle flow on the to float on the water, what we have to do means, first of all we have to keep a filter paper or filter paper, and we have to put needle on that one. Filter paper soaks in the water and goes into the water, but the needle floats on the water only. This is due to the surface phenomenon, surface tension or surface energy only. Now when generally we sometimes use the tents, and when the rain falls on the tent, what happens? Water droplets will be trapped in the small holes present in those tents. Due to the surface tension only, the molecules get the spherical shape and are trapped in those holes. But when we touch them, they lose their surface tension and lose their spherical shape, and it will drop on the drop on the earth. This surface tension is also used to test the jaundice. Look at normal urine has a surface tension of about 66 dynes per centimeter. High surface tension is there for the urine of the normal person, and it drops about 55 in the people who are suffering with jaundice. So in the people urine who are suffering with jaundice, surface tension is 55, and in the normal urine surface tension is 66 dyne per centimeter. So this fact, based on this fact, a hair test is designed. So here in this hair test, we sprinkle the sulfur powder on the urine sample. When the if the urine is taken from the person who is suffering with jaundice, then what happens? Due to the less surface phenomenon, surface tension, sulfur sink into the urine. If it is the urine of the normal person, then that sulfur will float on that urine. So like that, we can easily test whether person is suffering with jaundice or not, based on the surface tension. Now disinfectants also work on this phenomenon only. Soaps and detergents also work on this phenomenon only. Okay, na? So disinfectants are generally solutions that cause the low surface tension. So this, as a result, what happens? This allow them to spread out on the cell walls of the bacteria and it disrupt them. So disinfectants decrease the surface tension of the water. As a result, what happens? Water will spread into the walls of the bacteria and breaks them. Soaps and detergents also decrease the surface tension of the water. As a result, the clothes are easily wet and the dirt can be easily removed from them. Now washing with cold water. Look at surface tension of the cold water is high compared to the surface tension of the hot water. So as the surface tension of the cold water is high, clothes cannot be washed perfectly by using the cold water. So that's why to wash the clothes we would use some hot water. Now we define the surface tension like this. Look here. Yes. Now we have learned that all liquid molecules have a tendency to go into a spherical shape. No, that means some inward attraction force them acts to change them into the spherical shape. So in order to break this spherical shape and we have to spread this area, we have to apply some force on it. So that energy or that force. So here we are taking in the general sense. Actually, there are two different terms. So here is called as the surface energy. So here we have to use some amount of energy or force in order to break this spherical shape and to convert into the linear shape. No, so we would apply some energy or some force. So such energy or force here is called as the surface energy. So now are defined standardly like this. The work that is required to be done in order to expand the area of the surface of a liquid by 1 unit as the surface area. Here work means nothing but energy only. So the work that is to be done on the liquid surface to spread its area by 1 unit is defined as the surface energy. And here we have another term, that is the surface tension. Surface tension is defined as the force acting. For example, assume this as a liquid surface. So some force acts downwards into the liquid. No, so this force, due to this force only, the molecules tend to get the spherical shape. Okay, so such force here is called as the surface tension. So the force acting on the unit length of the liquid surface here as in the right angle to it is known as the surface tension. Now we go for the units of the surface energy and the surface tension. The units of the surface energy are ergs per centimeter square and joule per meter square. Erg per centimeter square and joule per meter square in CGS and in MKS units. And in the CGS units of surface tension are dyne per centimeter, and the units in the MKS method are Newton per meter, N per M. Now we go for the derivation of equation to calculate the surface tension. So we derive the equation for the surface tension by taking the help of the capillary tube. Capillary tube is a thin hollow glass pipe. So when we put the capillary tube in the liquid, whenever we lower that capillary tube in the liquid, what happens means due to surface tension, some portion of the liquid rises up into the capillary tube. And look at this liquid is moving upwards, and we know very well that gravitational energy works downwards. No, so the liquid rises to the height h where these two forces, that means surface tension and gravitational force, both become equal. So until that, up to that h, this liquid moves into the capillary tube. Okay, so if we make them equal, automatically we can get an equation to calculate the surface tension. Here we represent the surface tension with the gamma symbol like this, gamma. Look here. So we can write the equations like this. The force due to the surface tension acting upwards is surface tension into the circumference of the capillary tube. Look, if it is the circumference of the capillary tube and gamma is the surface tension. Now surface tension is the force acting per unit length, no? So what is the, if the force acting on the unit length is gamma, then what is the force acting on the 2 phi r length? So that means now we get this one, no? Gamma into 2 phi r. So this is the total surface tension that is acting on the liquid in the capillary tube. Okay, na? So this is the equation 1. So the surface tension acting upwards is gamma into 2 phi r. R is the radius of the capillary tube. Now the force acting downwards due to the gravity is equal to weight of liquid in the column. So we know very well that weight is equal to the mg, no? And that weight mg means nothing but F only, gravitational force. So here we can calculate as the weight of the liquid in the column. So the force that acting downwards due to gravity is nothing but weight of the liquid in the column. Okay, na? So weight of the liquid. And we know very well that weight of the liquid can be calculated by using the equation HdG. Okay, na? So like that we can easily calculate. And so here okay, right. We know very well that weight is nothing but W is equal to the mg, no? And we know mg is nothing but volume into density. So in the place of that one, we will write volume into density. So it becomes as weight of the water droplet, liquid droplet becomes as volume into density into the acceleration due to the gravity. That is V into rho into G. But the volume of the liquid in the capillary tube can be calculated by the equation phi r square h. H is the height of the capillary tube, height of the liquid in the capillary tube. This is the height of the liquid in the capillary tube. And area of the capillary tube can be calculated by using the equation phi r square h, phi r square. So the equation for the weight of the liquid in the capillary tube becomes as phi r square h into d in rho into g. So we consider it as the equation 2. Now at the height h, both surface tension and weight of the liquid becomes equal, no? So we have to make the equation 1 and 2 equal. As a result, we get gamma into 2 phi r is equal to the phi r square h into rho into g. Otherwise, we get the equation rho is equal to the gamma into HdG by 2. Gamma into HdG, H rho by H rho G by 2. H rho G by 2. Like this we get. But for convenience, you consider as the equation 4. Here, the equation 4 is valid if the meniscus of the liquid in the capillary tube is hemispherical. That means we should get like this or like this shape. In that case only that the equation 4 is applicable. And the angle of contact between glass and the liquid is 0. To good the angle of contact, if it is 0, then only that equation is applicable. If the angle is some theta, then instead of that equation we use this equation, that is gamma is equal to rho into r into h rho g, r into h rho g by 2 cos theta. So this equation we use if the liquid meniscus makes theta angle theta angle with the glass tube like this. Okay, not theta angle. So in that case we use this equation. Okay, now we go for the measurement of the surface tension equation. So surface tension can be easily experimentally decided by using two methods. One is the double capillary method and the other one is the liquid drop method. So in the double capillary method, what do we do means we take the capillary tubes of the two different radii and we keep them in the water or liquid. So uh, depending on the radius of the liquid capillary tube, the liquid rises to the different heights. For example, H1 and H2 uh, heights due to the different shape sizes of the capillary tubes. Now we apply the equation, fourth equation derived in the previously derived in this equation. Now as a result we get gamma is equal to the R1 H1 rho g by 2. So R1 is the radius of the first capillary tube, H1 is the height in the first capillary tube. In a similar way, we can write equation for the surface tension as R2 H2 rho g by 2. So this is equation 1 and this is equation 2. And from equation 1 we get gamma by rho 1 is equal to H1 rho g by 2, and from the equation 2 we get gamma by R is equal to here it is R2. R2 is equal to the H2 rho g by 2. And if you subtract equation 2 from 1, what happens? We get gamma into 1 by R1 minus 1 by R2 is equal to the Pg, rho g by 2 into H2 H1 minus H2. So here H1 H2 are the heights in the capillary tubes and R1 R2 are the radii of the radii of the capillary tubes, and rho is the density of the liquid and g is the acceleration due to gravity. So if we know the heights, simply we can calculate the surface tension of the liquid. So this is very easy method, comfortable method. Just we have to dip two capillary tubes in the liquid and we have to note the heights. So that is enough here. And we can measure the density and we know the g value. Okay. Second method is the drop number method. In this method we use the stalagmometer. So here what do we do means, with that stalagmometer we take the liquid whose surface tension is to be decided and we allow the liquid to fall slowly. Okay na? So here what do we do means, in the what is that double capillary method, we see with the same liquid we make the experiments and we use the capillary tubes of two different radii. In the first double capillary method, liquid is same, single liquid, but we take the two capillary tubes. But in the drop number method, we compare the surface tension of the two liquids, and we use the same stalagmometer. So here we know very well that surface tension gamma is equal to the R into the H rho g by 2. So we know very well that H rho g nothing but weight only. So in the place of that one we can write weight. So we get the equation gamma 1 by gamma 2 is equal to the weight 1 by the weight 2, W1 by the W2. ఓకేనా. So look here my dears, equation for the surface tension is R into H rho g by 2, and we know very well that the H into rho into g value, H into rho into g gives us weight, okay na. H into rho into g gives us weight. So here that principle only here is employed. So here what do we do means, we take the two liquids and we compare their surface tension. So here we have to know, so one of these two liquids may be a known solution to us, okay na? So we should know the surface tension of the one liquid, then we can easily know the surface tension of the other liquid. So and here the weight of the single droplet cannot be calculated, no. So here generally we allow the liquid to fall in many number of the water drops, many number of drops, and by counting the number we can calculate the surface tension. So here the weight of the total liquid that is falling from the stalagmometer can be calculated by the equation gamma into rho 1 by n1 for the W1, and this is for the first liquid, and for the second liquid we take it as the gamma into rho 2 by n2, okay. So liquid 1, liquid 2, and by keeping the equation 2 and 3 in the equation 1 we get this equation, that is gamma 1 by gamma 2 is equal to the W1 by W2 is equal to the this one, and otherwise in simple manner we get the fourth equation, that is the gamma 1 by gamma 2 is equal to the rho 1 into n2 by rho 2 into n1. So by this equation we can easily compare the surface tensions of the two liquids. So in this experiment what we have to do means, first of all we have to wash cleanly this stalagmometer. This is known as the stalagmometer, stalagmometer. You have to wash with chromic acid, then after with the liquid whose surface tension is to be decided. So first of all we have to with the suction pump we have to suck the liquid into the stalagmometer, and we slowly we have to allow the liquid to fall, and generally we allow the liquid to fall as the 20 drops. So if it falls fastly, if the water falls fastly, we can't measure the surface tension. So the experiment is repeated again with the second liquid, and we use the equation 4 here, and we calculate the surface tension of the given liquid. Thank you.